I woke up to my dad pacing the kitchen, muttering, "It's gone. It's just gone." My mom sat at the table, refreshing her phone. The screen stayed blank. No orders, no packages, nothing. Then the TV blared a red headline. Amazon disappears overnight. My parents froze. Outside, neighbors were already at their mailboxes, opening them, slamming them shut, shaking their heads. I didn't understand how a store could vanish in one night. But I felt it. The world was different. Mom slid a crumpled shopping list across the table. "We'll have to drive," she said. Dad rubbed his forehead. Every order, every subscription, gone overnight. I looked at the list. Cereal, notebooks, batteries, normal stuff. But it felt heavier than usual, like it carried more than groceries. The cereal box in front of me was almost empty. Normally, another one just showed up before we ran out. Not today. The TV was loud with breaking news. Millions of packages canceled, cargo planes grounded, warehouses shut down. The largest delivery system in history has collapsed overnight. Dad muttered, "Half the economy just disappeared." From next door, I heard Mr. Lopez groan, "My paycheck depends on those trucks." What now? I didn't really get what that meant, but I could tell it was serious. Outside, Mrs. Harris's voice cut through the morning. "The baby formula never came. What do we do now?" Her husband shouted back, "We'll drive until we find it." In my head, I saw delivery vans frozen in place like toys left mid-game. Through the window, I saw neighbors rushing around. People loaded cars, lists in hand. One man stood by his car flipping through old catalogs, circling items with a red marker like it was 1995. Two kids kicked an empty box across the street, the hollow sound echoing down the block. A radio from a passing truck said, "Supermarkets bracing for crowds." Panic buying already spreading. Someone yelled, "Guess we're all going back to the mall." Engines started, doors slammed, voices piled on top of each other. The whole street felt louder, like everyone had somewhere urgent to be. I pressed my palm against the window. The houses looked the same. The sun was rising, like always, but the street didn't feel the same. It felt like something invisible had snapped overnight. And deep down, I knew, whatever this was, we were already in it. By mid-morning, we were in the car too, caught in a river of traffic flowing toward the mall. Dad gripped the wheel, muttering, "This is madness." By the time we reached the mall, it felt like the whole town had chosen the same destination. When we pulled into the lot, it looked like a stadium on game day. Cars fought for spaces, horns blared, families spilled out carrying lists like tickets to survival. Inside, the air was thick with noise. The bookstore, once quiet, was overflowing. Parents stacked novels under their arms. Kids clutched comics like treasure. A clerk shouted, "Cash only. Systems are down." And groans rippled through the line. Near the entrance, an older man argued with a cashier. "I always order online. What am I supposed to do now?" The cashier shrugged. "Pick something off the shelf." The man stared at her like she was speaking another language. Past the food court, the toy shop line wrapped all the way to the entrance. A worker called out, "Limit 2 per family." Balloons bobbed above children's heads, bouncing against the ceiling. A kid in line yelled, "Best day ever," clutching 2 board games, while his mom rolled her eyes. I overheard a teenager mutter to his friend, "Forget downloading. Back to discs, man." His arms were full of DVDs like relics from another age. Dad shook his head. This isn't shopping. It's survival. But to me, it looked alive. Everywhere I turned, color burst. Book covers flashing, toys squeaking, food smells weaving together. It was messy, crowded, and human. Above the escalators, a TV flickered. Retailers nationwide report record crowds as Amazon disappears. Analysts warn shelves may empty within days. A woman nearby whispered, "I knew we were too dependent." Mom sighed. This won't last. Maybe she was right, but for the first time in years, the mall didn't feel like a ghost. It felt like the town had woken up, even if only for a day. We dropped our bags on a food court table. Dad pressed his fingers to his forehead like he was trying to hold something inside. Prime Video's gone, he muttered. Whole catalog wiped clean. Mom shrugged. It's just TV. It's not just TV, he snapped. Half the internet runs on their servers. If those are dark, companies go with them. His words landed harder than the trays clattering around us. Below us, a man shouted into his phone, "Our site's down!" Orders frozen. Payments are dead. He slammed the table and stormed off. At the next table, a woman whispered to her friend, "My son's company runs on Amazon's cloud. He called in tears this morning. They can't even log in." Her friend just shook her head, speechless. Overhead, the TVs flickered to a reporter. Thousands of businesses report outages after Amazon's sudden collapse. Startups relying on cloud hosting face shutdown. Economists warn of a chain reaction across multiple sectors. Behind us, someone whispered, "If Amazon can vanish, what else could?" Shoppers slowed, trays in hand, staring up at the screen. The food court noise dropped, just for a moment. Mom leaned closer, voice soft. "So what happens now?" Dad didn't look at her. Jobs. Millions of them. Just gone. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling lights. In my mind, I saw vast rooms filled with glowing machines, servers buzzing like a swarm of bees, flickering out one by one until the hive was dark. But the picture didn't end there. I imagined sparks lighting up elsewhere, in basements, in garages, in tiny offices tucked above corner shops. Little points of light in the dark, each one catching fire, like embers. Adults whispered about collapse. I saw something breaking, yes, but also reshaping. A new pattern of sparks, scattered everywhere, waiting to grow. The next morning, the TV was already on when I came downstairs. A red banner crawled across the screen. Global shipping in chaos. The anchor spoke quickly, words tumbling. Cargo planes once filled with Amazon packages now sit idle on runways. Shipping containers bound for fulfillment centers are stranded at ports worldwide. Experts warn of the largest logistics breakdown in decades. Analysts estimate billions in goods stranded, with no clear way forward. Dad muttered, "This is bigger than people think." Mom stirred her coffee slowly. Walmart's announcing expansions, eBay too. Shopify's stock jumped overnight. The words felt like thunder I couldn't quite see. In my head, I pictured airplanes lined nose to nose on a runway, bellies empty, wings drooping like tired birds. I imagined mountains of crates stacked on docks, labels curling in the sea breeze, no one to scan them. I pictured maps of the world, shipping routes glowing like tangled strings suddenly cut. On the radio, another voice. Without Amazon Web Services, outages ripple through tech companies. Streaming platforms stagger, startups face immediate shutdown. Dad sighed. Half the digital world was leaning on one leg. Now it snapped. From outside, I heard our neighbor yelling across the fence. "My online shop is down. No orders coming through." Another neighbor answered, "Maybe this is good. Maybe local stores will finally matter again." Their voices clashed like two sides of a coin. I pressed my face to the window. Trucks rolled past, not the big blue vans I was used to, but smaller ones, local names painted on the sides, logos I'd never noticed. Even Mr. Patel, from across the street, had taped a sign to his minivan, "Fast and Local Deliveries." He honked twice, grinning as he drove by. The world wasn't frozen. It was rearranging. And in my mind, I saw it like a patchwork quilt. Dozens of smaller giants stitching together a world that one company had once held in its hands. By afternoon, the town felt different. The grocery store that had been half empty last week was overflowing. Clerks hurried down aisles with carts stacked high, shouting prices over the noise. The bakery smelled like it was working double time. A line stretched out the door, and the baker himself stood outside handing out loaves still warm, flour dusting his apron. "Last batch for today," he called, his voice more joyful than tired. Mom shook her head. "This won't hold. Supplies will run out." But to me, it felt like the town had come alive. Down the block, I overheard two neighbors trading news. They say flour shipments are stuck in ports. The other laughed, holding a bag. "Then today's bread tastes even better." Their words carried two moods at once, fear and relief tangled together. By evening, the rush had slowed, but the town still buzzed like it hadn't in years. At dinner, the radio hummed in the background. Economists warn of inflation as supply chains stumble. Millions of workers tied to Amazon warehouses and logistics may face unemployment. Governments are assessing next steps. Dad turned the dial lower. The words felt heavy, and he didn't want them spilling over the table. Yet the meal itself felt lighter. We talked, really talked, about the bakery, the bookstore clerk who remembered Mom's name, the balloon I carried home from the toy shop. Afterward, I sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by paper bags. Their crinkle sounded different than the hollow thud of porch boxes, more alive, more human. That evening, neighbors pulled lawn chairs into driveways. One family strummed guitars, voices lifting into the warm air. Another shared food over fences, laughing about which shop had what. Someone shouted, "Trade you sugar for batteries," and people laughed like it was a game. Amazon had disappeared, but something else had appeared in its place. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't certain, but it was loud, colorful, and human. To me, it felt like a festival no one had ordered, yet everyone had shown up for. The next day, Dad drove us past the edge of town where the Amazon warehouse stood. It rose from the ground like a gray mountain, a box with no windows, no sound. The parking lot was empty, the loading bays shut like sealed mouths. A man in a neon vest walked slowly by the fence, like he didn't know where else to go. Dad's voice was low. Tens of thousands worked here. Overnight, gone. His hands tightened on the wheel. "This place is just a carcass now." I pressed my forehead against the glass. To me, it didn't look dead. It looked unfinished. As we slowed near the entrance, a man stood by the gate holding a cardboard sign. "We need work." His jacket hung loose on his shoulders, his eyes following every car that passed. Mom glanced away. Dad gripped the wheel tighter. In my mind, the gray walls blossomed with murals, ladders painted up the sides, reaching into clouds. The roof grew green with gardens, vines spilling over edges. Inside, I imagined music replacing the echo of conveyor belts, guitars, drums, voices filling the hollow air. Mom sighed. No jobs, no security. People are scared. But I saw markets under strings of glowing lights, stalls buzzing with bread, books, handmade toys, neighbors trading, laughing, eating together in the same place where packages once sped down belts. On the radio, a panel of experts argued, collapse is inevitable. No, new players will rise. Governments must intervene. Another voice cut in. Communities may need to take control themselves. Their words felt heavy, sharp. I pictured the echo inside turning into cheers, like the building itself wanted to breathe again. But in my head, I saw kids running across the warehouse floor, chalk drawing games where pallets used to be stacked, families setting tables where conveyor belts once rattled. Dad called it a carcass. I saw a canvas. Downtown, the changes were already showing. Shops that had been dark for years lit up with hand-painted banners. Families crowded sidewalks, voices overlapping as if the streets themselves had been waiting to breathe again. The old Sears building, empty since before I was born, now carried a fresh banner. Community market coming soon. Workers moved inside, dragging lights and tables across the dusty floor. A florist pulled dusty blinds open for the first time in years, smiling at the line forming outside. Mom shook her head as we walked by. It'll never last. No one can replace something that big. But from the doorway, a shopkeeper called out, "We'll make it work. People are here. That's enough." His words hung brighter than Mom's doubt. In my eyes, I saw something different. I saw the city redesigning itself, not faster, not smoother, but warmer. Main streets glowing with lanterns, kids darting between stalls, musicians playing on corners. Even the malls looked different. Not just places to shop, but places to gather. Food courts humming like town squares. Toy shops ringing with laughter instead of silence. On the radio, an economist warned, the economy faces long-term uncertainty. Inflation, instability, global disruption. His words dragged like chains. A second voice cut in, but this may open doors for new local economies. And in my mind, ladders rose from rooftops into painted skies. People climbed toward clouds that shimmered with dreams, not for faster packages, but for gardens, libraries, studios, playgrounds. It felt like the city was drawing itself again, but this time with crayons instead of blueprints. Adults spoke of shortages. I imagined abundance, not of boxes, but of people, filling the gaps with voices, ideas, and color. Amazon had vanished, but the emptiness it left wasn't hollow. It was full of doors waiting to open. That night, the house felt quieter than usual. The TV had gone dark again. Another outage. Dad sat at the table with papers spread in front of him, though he wasn't reading. His pen tapped against the wood in a slow rhythm. Through the thin walls, I caught their voices. "We lost something enormous," Dad whispered. "Jobs, stability, the ground beneath us." Mom answered softly. "Maybe. But did you see today? People were alive, talking, sharing. The town hasn't looked like that in years." Dad replied, "We depended on one giant." Maybe that was the mistake. He let out a long breath. "Hope doesn't pay bills, and fear doesn't build tomorrow," she replied. Her voice was steady, almost gentle. There was silence after that, the kind of silence that feels full, not empty. I lay on the couch with the balloon from the toy shop bobbing at my wrist, its ribbon tugging lightly with every breath. Outside, the streetlights hummed. I could hear neighbors' voices faintly, a guitar strum, laughter drifting through the night. My eyes closed, and I imagined again. Warehouses painted with murals, streets glowing with lanterns, neighbors filling sidewalks with food and music. Cities were redrawn, not with speed, but with color and warmth. Amazon had disappeared overnight, but the world hadn't ended. It was reshaping itself, awkwardly, noisily, imperfectly, yet alive. And as I drifted toward sleep, one thought tugged at me, quiet but certain. If something so vast, so certain, could vanish in a single night, what else might tomorrow bring?